reminds me of Animal Crossing.
We'll get to that.
Hello.
Yang gang!
What's
Yang
up?
Club.
What's up, guys?
Hi, guys.
I didn't realize you can
To
see
our
my...
epic live stream. We're here. We made it. We are at the book.
Are we holding it up?
Let's all hold
We all
the
have
thumbnail.
Hopefully this is the thumbnail. I don't know. I feel like it's going to be like the worst possible. Oh, cool. Okay.
How's everyone doing? Did you bring a liquid? I didn't bring alcohol again.
Same. This is emergency.
Emergency
Coffee.
water.
I have
Coffee club. Yeah. Next time we'll do this like 1 hour later so I can like a little bit better bring like a beer or something.
I say go for it, Kateri. It's noon on quarantine Saturday. I say go for it.
true. It is quarantine Saturday.
Mhm.
YOLO.
Yeah.
YOLO,
YOLO.
as the kids say.
I just realized I don't have my water. Oh my
Oh
gosh.
no.
I need
Complete.
actual liquid. Oh, here it is.
She has Bluetooth headphones. I'm like, how can I hear her so well from so far away?
Cool. So everyone say hi in the chat and tell us if you read the book or are partway through or whatever.
Yes.
Oh, we forgot to announce that. We should always try to remind people that you should come to the meeting even if you did not read the book.
Yes.
We
Especially
won't
if
judge.
it's this book. We won't
Yeah.
judge you. Yeah,
Not at
you
all.
can still hear our
Sometimes it's nice to kind of hear about a book and what other people think about it before you read it. So that's okay
Or maybe
too.
you're just not going to read it and just learn about it anyway.
Also fine.
But you should read this book.
Yes.
This can be your book trailer, basically.
Yes.
Yeah.
Well, what do you
like
call them, Kateri? The Yang notes. Will be your
Oh
Yang
yeah,
notes.
the Yang notes. We haven't
Notes.
started Yang notes, but we will. That's on the list of things to do. And so for those of you who don't want to read the books,
We'll try to have
Yang
them.
notes. You guys are
Yeah.
innovative. That's amazing.
yeah.
Mhm.
That one was all Kateri. I'm giving her.
Well, I didn't
for
think
that
of the name. I think someone else thought of the name. I was like, we need a cliff notes for the books we read, so that
Smart.
people can just have a way to like, access the information if they want to. And,
It's pretty easy to
someone
get
said,
yang in a play on words for anything.
Yeah.
Yang
I know,
notes,
right?
anything.
yeah.
Yeah.
But I
It
forget
doesn't-
who, but someone on Twitter commented Yang notes, and I was like, yeah,
There it is.
it's happening.
All right, let's say some hellos. Here's Manny.
Hi, Manny.
Hi, Manny. He is a huge supporter of the book club, so I definitely wanted to give him a shout out. We got Daniel, who is also a big supporter.
What's up,
He's
Daniel?
here. He's here every time. We got George.
Hi, George.
Huge
It's so
hits down.
cool, by the way, just like seeing people on Twitter and commenting, following, and then like knowing that we're talking to them right now. I mean, in quarantine times, this is pretty cool.
I agree. Breakfast beer is a thing, Kateri.
Breakfast beer. Okay. Not a mimosa.
Breakfast beer.
Breakfast beer. I like
The
it.
audiobook does count, Austin.
Oh my gosh, yes.
I actually had to switch from
Telling people.
reading the book to listening to the book because it is very dense, and I have ADHD and couldn't keep myself paying attention.
Yeah.
Does Andrew read the book
The
on audio?
whole thing. The
Yeah.
entire
I might
thing.
just-
It's amazing.
Including the acknowledgments.
Okay.
Yeah.
you
Let's
go.
see. Well, there's Erica was up in here. Hey, Steven. When do you...
But it's okay. When you show up to the TA section, didn't completely finish the book.
Oh.
Takesha.
Oh, I've been there. Takesha. Her copy is supposed to arrive today. Can't wait. Oh, cool.
Yay! Rebecca. It is a good read for sure. And Erica.
Hello, Erica.
Hi, Erica.
We love you too. And Audrey.
Hi, Audrey. Hi, beauty. You guys are so beautiful.
Just talking about the top row. Well, him too. I mean, I'm just,
Oh,
We're all
Single
beautiful
yourself out. We're all beautiful.
in our own ways.
Humanity first.
Yes. Hello, Will.
Hello,
We
Will.
can just assume Andrew's watching this, right? Even if he doesn't comment, we'll
Yeah,
assume
that's-
he's watching.
Andrew, we know you're here.
Yes. You don't need to comment. We know you're here.
Yes. He retweeted us, so that's a good way to start it.
Yeah.
That's a
He
great
knows
start.
this exists. Thanks for
Erica said
Oh,
thank-
yeah.
Of course.
If you guys don't know, Erica is you guys know Erica, but Erica has been contributing children's book recommendations. So if you didn't see that, please look out for it. We also upload the videos to our YouTube page. So I think that's one of the most recent ones that we upload.
Mhm.
Thanks to Trevor.
Yeah.
Yeah.
All my
Trevor for that.
tech skills.
you're
Upload
Yeah.
video.
you're learning for us.
Before
Mhm.
we get into it, can I just say a quick thing about the Poetry Week?
Yeah, go for it.
Yeah. So I just wanted to say, I think some of you in the comments contributed. Yeah. So the Yang Gang Book Club had a Poetry Week, and it was our first one, and it was super awesome. We got to know some Yang Gang that we hadn't known before and contributed poetry. So we challenged everyone to write an original poem Monday through Friday, and it was so cool. So many beautiful poems, and also so many good Yang Gang, Humanity First poetry, UBI poetry, so cool. So also plugging that, you can go on our page, and anyone who wrote a poem, we retweeted it, and we will be reading anyone who did one every day. Meghin and I next week will read it live on the Twitter page.
Can I say something about that too? I really appreciated it because I've never written poetry. I don't read a lot of poetry, and I am notorious for. As a kid, I used to color, and if it went out of the lines, I'd throw it away. So this time, Kateri was like, "Don't overthink it, just do it," and I did it, and it was fun. So it was really cool.
Yeah, I really loved your poem about aliens when we did that. That was
Yeah.
really cool.
Yeah, that's a big topic right now. Apparently, aliens are here on Earth.
Yeah.
Yes, that was a good one for sure. And I even told Kateri, I think I texted her, and I was like, thank you for inspiring me to create again. I've just been not in the creativity mindset because writing takes a lot out of me, and I just haven't been there. And so this was the poetry week was a really good way to kind of inspire that kickstart back into creativity for sure.
Yeah,
Cool.
I agree. Cool. So shall we all check in, say hi, say who you are, and we're all going to say something a little bit about ourselves that pertains to the war on normal people and something that Andrew Yang talks about in that book.
Who's going first?
Who's going first?
Let's start
see.
with Trevor.
Sure.
Yeah.
I'll go first. So, War on Normal People. I read it, I think, in the summer, maybe the fall of last year. And I think what I found when I was talking to people about universal basic income and Andrew Yang and unemployment, and a lot of people had a hard time foreseeing that because we're not in the middle of it. And the need for UBI was kind of abstract. I have I think a unique perspective being born and raised in Flint, Michigan. I was born in 1982. In the 70s, Flint, Michigan had the highest per capita income in the nation. Everyone was middle class. Everybody was working at General Motors. And over 15 years in a city that had about 170,000 people, they lost 80,000 jobs in about 15 years. And that was my childhood. And then, so during the 90s, everybody knows Flint now, unfortunately, because of some of the problems. Highest crime rate in the nation, high unemployment, drugs. And that stems from the loss of jobs. And so I literally saw what happens to a town that was doing great when jobs are lost. And that was mainly because of globalization. And then now, of course, I live in Seattle, Washington. I'm a real estate broker here, and I see, Amazon is literally trying to take over the world, and they're doing it. And their stock's at a record high now. So I've seen kind of the full circle of that. And so for me, universal basic income and Andrew Yang's message, I picked up on it like that. I mean, I've seen it, and the need for universal basic income is just so obvious to me. And I think now with the coronavirus and what's going on, I think so many more people are seeing it. And I think what Andrew said about we're going to see 10 years in about 10 weeks. I think that's why you're seeing so many people talk about universal basic income now, is because look around. I mean, half the people I know, I come from the restaurant industry, they're not working, and they need help. They don't have rent money. They don't have food. And they have kids they have to take care of. So that's what everything in this book, I mean, it's just, it reiterated kind of what I know and what I'm thinking is going to happen in the next 10 years.
Yeah. And I'd just like to add, Trevor is the original creator of the Yang Gang Book Club in a way. So you created one last fall, and then Meghin and I.
And no one wanted to be a part of it. And then Kateri and Meghin started, and it took off.
We started creating, and then found you after we started brainstorming the idea, and then we're like, oh, hey, look, and then we reached out to you, and then it went from there. And so now you're helping us with the 2.0, I guess. And
I'm happy to be here. I think it should be 1.0. This is 1.0. This is the real deal. Mine was practice round, I think.
There we go. Yeah. Primed everyone.
You walked so we could run.
Poetry.
I know. So articulate.
Cool. So should we go to Ellers next? Let's go clockwise.
Let's do it.
I'll let you guests go first anyway. That makes sense.
Yes.
That's nice. That's very kind of you. My name is James Ellers. A lot of what resonated with Trevor resonated with me. Not only with Andrew Yang, but with the book. So if you've read the book, you will know that Andrew Yang's stump speech comes straight out of the book. And a lot of things he talks about. And one of the big things that resonated with me is that the things that most people struggle with economically, unemployment, unable to get a job, housing, everything's expensive, student loan, debt, things like that. So everybody is suffering from similar things, but I don't think a lot of people really know that it is something that is a widespread problem. A lot of us, and this is something I did especially, I internalized it, what in the holy hell is wrong with me? Certain things just were a lot harder than they should have been. And for some reason I thought it was a shortcoming in myself. So when I found Andrew Yang, he started talking about these things where, it's actually something that's very common. And as a result, again, people are having real issues, depression, everything like this. And that's one of the big reasons why I got so excited about Andrew Yang, and I want so many people to hear his message. If you haven't read this book, please get it, read it, audiobook, print book, whatever you can, just because it helps. It'll just rearrange your thoughts so that that a lot of these things are systematic problems that we can help and fix versus just problems internally. You know what I mean? So, and there's so many different parts in the book that apply to that. So I really feel that every person, they need to read this book. You might not agree with everything in it, but it'll give you more of a perspective with what's going on, especially during the coronavirus, where these are things that we can help people get past. And there are specific reasons why these things are happening. So yeah, I'm super excited to talk about it. And again, thank you guys for inviting me.
Yeah, thanks for coming on.
Just a quick question. Could you guys hear the music a second ago?
A little bit. But we also heard Trevor's dog, so.
That's what I
Could you
heard.
close the door? Thanks. It's kind of nice, but okay.
I do also want to say, the person with the name One Conscious Being, I do see your questions. You're asking really good questions, so I really want to save them for after this is done. I promise I'm not ignoring you.
Yeah.
I just wanted to say that.
We're just going to finish up. I mean, I'm not going to say very much. My name's Kateri. I co-created the Yang Gang Book Club with Megan. I guess you're over that way. Yeah.
Well done.
And so this book speaks to me on like for two big personal reasons. I was kind of already talking about the geography element. Was this during the stream or before the stream? I don't remember. But okay, so I'm from Modesto, California. Originally born and raised, and I spent the last 6 years in Santa Barbara, California. And if you don't know either of those places, Santa Barbara is like beach town. Oprah lives over there. Like she's not that far. Like, you know, like it's a much more affluent and beautiful place. So Modesto is not that. It's like farmland. It's like it's this like red belt of California, kind of in a way. You know, it's diverse too, of course. I love my hometown, but I like came here because I have artistic pursuits that, you know, like I'm a dancer and I'm a writer, so I just couldn't stay, you know, and ended up coming to Southern California. And so, but over the past 6 years, of course, I still drive home to visit my family. So I've seen not only the sort of economic decline that was already happening before I left get worse, but also Santa Barbara, like even here, like our main street, it's called State Street, like so many empty stores in this like affluent place, like, and we I think a lot of our economy is on tourism too. We have a lot of cruise ships that come in, like they call it like the Riviera of California or something like that, you know, so there's a lot of tourism. So there's that. And then, like I said, my like artistic, like I did an English major, like you know, the humanities is like how I think. Like I love that it's a math movement, but for me, like you build on that and you have the humanities, right? Like you use those policies to then have culture and have meaning in life that is, you know, community that we can all share and take part in, and the arts are a huge part of that. So he talks a lot about that in this book, I think, and in starting this with Megan, I think that was a big thing that we had in mind that we wanted to talk about more.
Yeah,
so
for sure.
I'll hand it over to you, Megan.
I'm doing like I want to comment after each person, so. And then also
Erica's
I laughed.
chiming in on all the people.
I laughed at this.
I love that. New hashtag.
T-shirt.
Humanities first.
Yeah, we can do that. Merch
T-shirt
idea.
alert.
We'll give you copyright or whatever.
I know. Okay.
Cool.
So I'm Megan. I'm one of the co-creators along with Kateri. And this has been probably one of the coolest experiences of my life has been working on this with Kateri and Trevor and everybody else and James, he's been on several times now, you know, so it's been a really cool experience. I'm not going to reiterate. I feel like, you know, from the personal side, for sure, you know, I'm right outside of Baltimore, and Yang talks about that a lot in his book. And then right now I live in Fayetteville, North Carolina. And that is just, I talk about empty storefronts. I mean, it's empty buildings that go on for miles. I mean, the economy takes hit after hit here. And there's a big homeless population, you know, so obviously there's all of that. I think you guys went into that really well. I think for me, and this kind of goes off of what you were saying, Ellers, about that feeling of not knowing that everybody else is feeling this. For me, I also have a degree in English, like Kateri. I'm definitely a creative person. I also have really hard attention issues. And so I get really into something and then I'm like, oh no, this catches my interest more. I'm really passionate about this thing. I want to pursue this thing.
Same here. Yeah.
Yes. And I've had so many different jobs since I've graduated college. I mean, even since high school, you know, I worked at Chick-fil-A for my first job, and I didn't work there because I wanted to. I worked there because I had to. I needed money, you know, like they paid well, and I was 16 and they employed me, you know, and so I worked there and, you know, worked food service pretty much every summer after that. at, you know, various places. And then even during college, you know, I worked interiors at school and I was a maid in a hotel. And, you know, I did what I had to make a living and to get through life. And then I thought, okay, once I graduate college, I'll be doing something I love and I won't have to do a job just to get by anymore. Nope. No. You know, after college, I was a nanny. I was a preschool teacher. I was a gym manager. I was a personal trainer. I did so many different things. And, you know, when I was a preschool teacher, I really didn't want to be a preschool teacher. I was miserable, but I had really good benefits. I made a really good wage, you know, that was the best wage I had made so far. And, you know, it was something I needed to do, not something I wanted to do. And it really was detrimental to my mental health having to do that. And I just remember thinking and having this conversation with my husband, if I could just afford to not work at this job, everything else in my life would be so much better. Right. But I need the healthcare. I need the wages. I need the stability of having 40 hours a week at the same time every day, you know. And then, you know, I ended up quitting that job to work at the gym, and we took a significant pay cut. And I'm glad that I was at that time that I could do that. But I mean, UBI would have helped immensely. You know, I'm one of those people that, like, I want to pursue my passions. I do. You know, if one day I decide I want to go help homeless people for like 3 months and that's all I do, I want to be able to do that. You know, if I decide I want to go do something else, you know, I want to have that freedom. And hearing Andrew Yang talk about UBI and hearing the stories in the Yang Gang, I feel like a lot of people feel that way, you know. And someone asked the question on Twitter the other day, how much money would you need not to work? And most people answered, like, it's not really that I don't want to work. It's just right. that I want to be able to survive and I want to be able to do something I enjoy. And I think for me, that was the thing that spoke to me the most.
There's this funny meme, and it's like this person getting interviewed for a job. And they go, so tell me why you'd be good for this job. And the person goes, well, I'm really passionate about eating food. You know, like, I feel like that's like people are taking jobs because they have to. And then if anyone knows, if you're a writer or whatever your passion is, if you work for 8 or 10 hours, I think most of us get home, we don't have the mental capacity to do what we really want to do. And I think what's so great about universal basic income is, you know, it gives people, I think, the two best pursuits you can have, you know, science or the humanities and arts. And there are some people out there that are baristas, bartenders, janitors, teachers, whatever. But I think that the amount of value they could add if they could spend the amount of time they wanted taking care of family members or writing or learning their music passion. And we have to decide as a society, what do we want? You know, what do we want? Like, let the robots take the jobs. Let them take the jobs. We just need a structure in place to take care of people so they can focus on the important stuff.
Yeah, and on that note, I think I'll post this comment and say this quote to get us started from The War on Normal People by Andrew Yang. Intro, The Great Displacement. He says in the intro, we are more than the numbers on our paychecks, and we are going to have to prove it very quickly. So that's in the context of him trying to say that, like, we've got work to do. But that whole idea of we are more than the numbers on our paychecks. And I like this comment saying, instead of making a living, we should just call it making money. Like, we've that term is such a good point. I think that term is so tied in with our jobs are so tied in with our livelihood and therefore our, like, purpose in walking this earth at this point, that it's too much. Those lines have been blurred too much. And I think that's sort of getting at a little bit of what we're all talking about, especially Meghin.
Yeah, in the context of when he was writing this, like, he wrote this a couple of years ago. So the context of this, again, is based on another quote from the introduction is experts and researchers project an unprecedented wave of job destruction coming with the development of artificial intelligence. So again, the context, what we're looking at in the book is pre-COVID, right? So again, if you look at what the world's like right now in the context of what's going on right now, like all these timelines are drastically moved up. Like,
Right.
this is something like, again, like I need to be giving this book to family and friends, like everyone, just because the urgency of what's going on right now is going to speed it up so much.
I was just thinking about that the other day. I think I've bought 13 copies of War on Normal People. I sent one to my mom. And I don't know about you guys, but I've been getting texts and emails from people that were very resistant to Andrew Yang and UBI, especially, the older generation. The American dream is, you go to work, you retire. That's kind of when life starts. I found a lot of resistance to UBI because it's a paradigm shift. But I've been getting texts and I've been getting people saying, hey, I think that guy might have been right. And I think it's because of, like you were talking about, James, we're seeing right now what Andrew's been talking about, and it's different. It's a global pandemic, but it's accelerated what's happening. And, another reason, just to make a note, why I love Andrew Yang so much is because this global pandemic is pretty good for his message. It's pretty good for what he's what his policies are, but no one is more upset about that than Andrew. He's not someone that would wish an economic collapse just so UBI can get implemented. I really do think that he, cares about the normal person in America. But I think a lot of people are starting to see the value in UBI because of it. So.
Yeah. And you talk about the normal person, and where, the book is called The War on Normal People. And I feel like maybe we should touch on that, because there's a chapter that he dedicates in the beginning into being like, what is a normal person? Because there's a lot of room for opinion in there, but this is why we're the math movement. He just says, well, let's look at the numbers. Yeah. So maybe we'll turn to that chapter. Unless you guys have anything else you wanted to add. I was personally really struck by this just because, I guess because of living in California, I think, and not knowing a lot of people that are from middle parts of the country, and, not having really even visited a lot of the middle parts of the country. And even just following his campaign when because he was in Iowa and stuff a lot, and learning a bit about people who live there. And then also reading this book, being like, whoa, we're it's a very big country, and it's a point to consider. We're all, it's how do we be in touch with everybody? How do we stay connected as a country, and not just kind of this social cultural kind of thing, but also just what's that person's problem over there 5 states away from me, 5 states east of me, so I think he's just trying to prove his point. He's just trying to justify his argument. But in reading that chapter, it's called Who is Normal in America, that it made me have that whole thought process based on just learning all those facts about these people that I have never met and may never meet, will never meet a lot of them.
I love math. I think I heard Andrew Yang on Joe Rogan or maybe Sam Harris podcast, I forget, and then Googled them and saw the math hat, and I was hooked. So I like the whole kind of show your work. The first chapter is all right, because I am not a huge fan of the name of the book. I think, I haven't been. But when you get to the first chapter and it's let me explain what he means by normal people, and there's graphs and pictures and stats, and it's like, this is where we're getting our information from. And I think so much of that needs to be a part of how we make decisions on a national and state level. I loved it.
Yeah, one of the big things he touches on is that, like, most normal people, I mean, to say it, briefly, don't have a lot of savings, are, a paycheck or two away from running out of money. And basically in the context of the book, when automation speeds up, or when, some catastrophe happens, a lot of people are going to, like, most normal people are going to be hitting very hard times. I mean, that's towards the end of the book. Again, most people attending college for 1 year, graduate from high school, net worth approximately $36,000, about $6,000 excluding the home, and less than $500 in flexible savings. So, and again, it's not to say that, people are doing bad. It's just like, most of us, a lot of people that, would prefer to have more savings, things like that, and have struggled paycheck to paycheck. And I've been in those situations. I mean, the crisis kind of threw me back into it, but again, it's to give you the perspective that, hey, it's more than just you, like, and we need to figure out ways to solve it and make it work for everyone.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think that I totally agree. Like, that was something, it's like almost heartbreaking sometimes when I think about that, because I think about people that I know that are really struggling. I also work in mental health, so I work with people who have lived on the streets. And it's just so heartbreaking to sometimes think about the struggle and like the mental struggle that they go through because of their economic struggle. And to think like they just, that they might feel like, a sense of guilt or like at fault for not getting ahead, when it's like, well, really, like, our system is kind of out to make it so that you don't, in a lot of ways. It's not out to help you.
And it's huge demographic. I mean, you're seeing it with the opioid crisis, like when older men lose their job they've been working at for 20 years, and this is what provided for their families, and they lose that job. I think, James, you're hitting a really good point. A lot of people think that they're broken, or that it's their fault, and that they have no value because what they've been doing, or the work that they've been doing, or the town. Frankly, there are towns all throughout the Midwest, all throughout that the local economy is devastated, gone. And who can find work or provide for their family there? And they're not alone. And I think people do feel lonely, and do feel broken, and do feel that they've lost hope. And that's where I think, when you're talking about that, and anxiety and stress and mental health and depression, UBI is so much more than the money. It's so much more. It's a feeling like, what, we're going to be all right, or we can do this, we can budget it. And it's a lift up. It's going to help people, fill out their 8th application, for a job. It's going to help people, or a lot of people, they give up, and we're seeing that the stats are we're on normal people, the drugs and the suicides and the domestic abuse. And a lot of that stuff is happening because of economic uncertainty.
Yeah. And and he even talks about that in his book, for sure, not about the whole towns, and cities where people just don't have jobs. But in order to leave, you have to have the economic ability to leave. And then if you can't, you're just kind of stuck in that cycle, and so it's hard to stay, but it's hard to leave too.
Absolutely.
And that's like a huge issue. I wanted to touch on, like, going back to what we were saying before about, the normal people. I think the part that really kind of punched me in the gut is when he said normal Americans don't graduate from college, they don't have the savings, all of that. And then he says, these are the median statistics. 50% of Americans are below this. So the normal is really bleak. And then
Mhm.
everybody below that is just, you're reading that and you're like, oh wow, that's pretty bad. And then, you know, he says, yeah, and then everybody else is below this, and you're like,
Yeah.
Totally.
That was like, yeah, that was an example of just like more eye-opening thing for me as someone who is college educated, who comes from a kind of 50-50 amount of college education on both either sides of my family, but like just grew up with that notion of like, yeah, like college is in your future,
Mhm.
you know. But then to think that there's like that many people in the country that don't have that, it's not like I'm saying there's something, in a way it's like I'm saying there's something wrong with that, but there's something wrong with like the assumption that I had, and but then why is it that way, you know, like it's really complicated, because I don't want to be like saying like everyone should be going to college, but there's a very like distinct disparity and correlation of like where you are, what class you come from.
Yeah,
That
and
kind of
Kateri,
stuff.
I think that, you know, that is a couple things. Like, you know, it's my biggest problem with the very aggressive pay off all student debt. And, you know, I think free college is a great idea. I think anyone that wants to go to college, we should be able to figure out a way to get them to college. But my problem is there's a lot of people that don't want to go to college. I went to college, I got a degree, and that was in my future. But I feel like a lot of policies seem to pander to a certain group, a certain voter base that they want to get.
Right.
And what's so great about universal basic income is it gives everyone the freedom to do what they want. You know, college is not in everyone's future. And if we're going to, you know, are we going to replace people's value with working with their value if you go to college? I think that's leaving out particularly the Trump voter, you know, and saying we're going to pay off all student debt and we're going to do free college is not a great way to reach across the aisle. I don't. Where universal basic income, I think, is.
Yeah, and to touch on the Erica, to touch on the political side of it, like absolutely, the political side of it's just too. People throwing out solutions just are too polarizing. Like, we're not asking for free college. We're asking for relevant and affordable college. We're not asking for a federal jobs guarantee that's going to make the problem worse, where you're just working something that you're completely dependent on and there's no passion or, you know, upward mobility in it. We're just asking for capital to participate in capitalism. Like, it's not complicated. I mean, what he goes over in the book, I mean, it multiple times, is just like, there are ways to fix it. Like in the beginning of the chapter 3, Who's Normal in America, it says, you know, the future is already here. It's just unevenly distributed. Like, there are ways to fix it. And UBI is one way that we could, again, give everybody a foundation to start from.
yeah.
Right. Totally. So what were some of the let's focus on first the first two parts, I guess, kind of, because then the third part kind of stands apart from the rest of it. So off the top of your head, do you like know of anything that like within like some of the chapters or some of the like, because definitely there's like, he goes into the stuff on like automation, goes into the stuff on just like the specifics of what's wrong. But yeah, any like chapters or like things that he focused on that
So
really
real quick, do you guys
stuck out to you?
highlight or take notes in books?
Oh
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
just
I-
uploaded
for
a
my-
video.
Yeah, for my nonfiction, I do. And as you can see, there
Yeah.
is highlighting and notes throughout this book. So I
Awesome.
picked it up the other day to think about what I wanted to talk about. And I was like, oh, it'd be easier if I didn't highlight things. I feel like there's more highlighted in this book than
Yes, same. I felt like that
Highlight
meme
full
where
pages.
people are highlighting the entire page. I'm like, I am
Yeah.
this meme right now. This is me. Yeah, so you said what things like stuck out to us, Kateri, that he said were the problems. I
mean,
one of the
even just
things
looking at
Yeah, I think one of the things that jumped out to me when he was talking about automation, and in particular the places that it affects, in Middle America and such, or places like that. And he was also saying this disproportionately kind of affects people who kind of voted for Trump. And one of the things that kind of stuck out to me was, one of the things that Trump really latched onto was, you guys don't have jobs. Immigrants are coming in and taking your jobs. And that's something that you can kind of see. The area that I was from in Maryland, we had a very big Hispanic population, and my dad employed a lot of them, and so that was something that people around me could see. That's just my experience. That's something a lot of people around me could see, that, but what's funny is that Andrew then goes into, I think it's almost a whole chapter where he's talking about what automation has taken from the economy, and that like it's taken more jobs than anything. They're literally outsourcing call centers, for example, which employed hundreds of, thousands of people in America, and they've outsourced that to people overseas. So it's not even people who are coming in to America, like they were saying. It's AI technology that they are then not even using in America. It's AI stuff that they're using somewhere else.
His best one-liner was, when he says you go to a factory in Detroit, you don't see wall-to-wall immigrants, you see wall-to-wall robots. They've been automating manufacturing jobs and moving the factories to Mexico, China, and Asian countries for 50 years. So we've seen what automation does to, they call it the Rust Belt because these were all prominent towns in the Midwest that are no longer that way. But now we're getting to a point where the AI, the automation is, I'm a real estate broker, financial advisors, lawyers. I have very successful friends that are lawyers or getting out of law school. That profession, there is little that is better set up for automation and AI than, searching legal databases. And so it's happening, and I just think it's hard for people to see that. But if you look, when I grew up, you go to malls. Last time I was in a mall, it looked like depression. It was sad.
And that's pre-COVID.
Exactly.
Where I live, there's one mall. It wasn't doing that great before, but now it's been closed for like 6 weeks.
Same. We drove past our mall the other day that we have in Fayetteville, and I thought it was actually I thought that they were demolishing it because they're taking this time to because the Sears went out of business, and that's one of, what does he call it? The main flagship. What does he call it? That store that he says is like the main store of the malls, and those are the ones that are closing. Yeah. And that's why malls aren't succeeding and anymore. And so the Sears closed, and I saw them demolishing it, and I had to look it up. I was like, are they closing the mall? Because like you guys said, I grew up going to malls too. That was just that's what you did. That was like the one thing your anchor store, think you will. That's the one thing that your parents would let you do. You know what I mean? Like you would just go to the mall with your friends, and you'd go catch a movie, and you'd go eat, and you'd go pretend to shop. You know what I mean? Like that's what you would do. And even now, like I enjoy that. Like I don't like buying clothes online. You know what I mean? Like some of these things, I'm like, guys, don't let these stores go out of business. Like,
well, I think of
I want to interact with people.
I think of if you guys watch Stranger Things, the last season, where as the kids get older and then they go to the mall open. So it's so funny it makes me think of that. Cause I was like, that was that's an 80s, takes place in the 80s. So it's that's a couple generation, it's really become, it's so interesting how it so quickly became interwoven into our social structure. And now it's so quickly being just pried out of it, it's violence. It's oh my gosh, it's like a form of social violence in a way.
It's hard too, because I'll go to a local independent bookstore with a list of 6 books, and they don't have any of them. And then and the Barnes and Noble just closed. And Barnes and Noble used to be demonized because they were putting out local indie bookstores,
Yep.
And our Barnes & Noble just closed in West Seattle, and I was so sad because their inventory was huge. It was like a mega store. But then I get on Amazon, and I could literally here in Seattle get every book on my list delivered, not next day delivery, 2-hour delivery, you know, for like 30% off what I would have bought it for to support the indie bookstore. So it's hard because
It's a horror
as
story.
a consumer, they've made a better mousetrap, you know, and they can literally, a guy on a bike will come bring me my book. And I want to support the retail stores. I want to support, but I also, you know, want my books. So, you know, that it's hard because in this day and age right now, I'm not the person that's going to go browsing for things in a store. That's just not me anymore. And so I do buy online, and it gets delivered instantly. So I don't know. It's hard to think about because the stores, they're closing, and it's not just, oh, go out and support them. That's not how it really works.
Yeah. Well, it's interesting that you bring that up because I literally just had that thought the other day. Like, I had like this pitying feeling for Barnes and Noble, and I was like, wait a second, what? Like,
Totally.
I remember when I was pissed off because they actually put out Borders, and I was like,
Yeah.
I loved
Yeah.
Borders. They had a way bigger YA section than Barnes and Noble, and Seattle's Coffee had amazing hot chocolates, and I was so annoyed that they put out basically they put out our Borders, right? And then I had a pitying feeling for Barnes and Noble not that long ago, and
they were the big guy. They were the big guy.
Yeah.
Yeah. So
You guys remember Wall-E? The movie Wall-E?
yes.
Wait,
Wall-E?
Yeah.
The company by and large that like
Yeah.
owned everything. Yeah, that's Amazon. That's where
Amazon.
we're at right now.
Yeah. Let me build on that whole conversation because there's this chapter called, let me make sure I don't say it wrong. Humanity and Work. Is it Humanity and Work?
Oh yeah.
On Humanity and Work. That's a really good chapter in this book. And one of the
what page is it, Kateri?
The chapter.
Oh.
So chapter 7.
62.
62, yeah.
And then the quote that I'm going to read is on page 68. So it's kind of what he finishes his whole thought process in, because he's basically just talking about kind of what we talked about earlier, where we're, like, humanity is we're so tied to our jobs, and so
I already know what sentence you're going to read. I already know which one you're going to read. I've got it highlighted right
it's
here.
actually not him. It's Benjamin. It's the one by Benjamin Honeycutt. I just noticed that it was not his. It says, purpose, meaning, identity, fulfillment, creativity, autonomy, all these things that positive psychology has shown us to be necessary for well-being are absent from the average job. So I think it's just like this. I'm thinking of how this like kind of can get us into a conversation about like what should our jobs be to us?
Yeah.
Which I think
So,
Cody kind of touched on that, but
right on what you're saying, you know, the same page right below, you know, Oscar Wilde has that work is the refuge of people who have nothing better to do. I think, and the reason I say that is because, you know, my favorite Scott Sands quote is, you know, UBI is not paying you to do nothing. It's paying you to do anything. And I think we're going to have to change individually, like not just as a society, but like find the value, like who do you want to be, you know, and what do you care about? You know, do you want to be a writer? Do you want to be a dancer? Do you want to climb mountains? Right now, it's generational. Who we are is what we do for work. You know, if you're introducing yourself, you're on a date, what do you do? What do you do as work? And I think we're not going to have that choice for very long. It's going to be put on us. There is going to be no work. It's not just 25% unemployed. It's going to be 25% of the population is unemployable. They're not going to have the skills to get a job in our economy because a robot or an algorithm can do it better. That's just the facts. And so how are you going to wake up? You know, what's going to make you make that coffee and do your own work? And if that means writing a children's story, then I think there's so much more value in a crappy poem than there is in doing whatever. I'm not going to talk down about a profession, but there's a lot of people out there that know, heck yeah, I do not take value out of my job. So I think that's right on point. That's where we're going to have to be as a society, is what are we doing instead of work?
Well, and it's actually a better, sorry, echo. It's a better like system moving forward. And like, if we can make it work, I mean, if you really think about, if you didn't have to work for money, what would you be doing? A lot of people don't even know. Like, I was asked that question. I was like, I don't know.
Totally.
Like, a lot of people don't even know the answer to that question. So if we can, like, our goal, and again, the whole goal with what he's talking about in this book is saying automation isn't a bad thing. Like, we need technology to move forward, so because it's more efficient, it can build a better economy, but we need it to work for everyone. So exactly what Trevor was saying, we need to start moving away from, you know, you are what you do for work. Like, why can't, this is how you make money over here, and this is what you do for a passion or for a living. You know what I mean? We need to decouple those and move forward, because in reality, if we figured out, if we built systems to make it work, like, it would be awesome. Like, it would make how much more would be developed and how many people would be happier and how much more progress it would make if people aren't sitting here thinking that their value as a human being is tied to how much money they have. You know what I mean? Like, how much money they make, because especially for men, I mean, that's one of the biggest indicators of value is like, hey, how much money do you have? What kind of car do you drive? How big is your house? You know what I mean? Like, the entire conversation around it is really backwards. But it's not, it's due to the kind of system we're living in. So we're saying that we want to move past that. Like, let the automation and technology do its work. Institute a VAT so that the profits from that would go, help out the people. And then people would be able to work on their passions. Because again, most people don't even know the answer to that question. Like, if you didn't have to work for money, what would you do? Like, and that's where we need to go.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's almost like a deprogramming yourself. You know what I mean? Like, collectively as a society, we've kind of been programmed one way. And actually, I think I want to give a shout out to James Treacle. Actually, he has that video essay on workism on his channel.
I'll have to check it out.
Yeah, it's really good.
We'll link stuff that we reference in the description.
But if you don't follow him, I think his channel is Treacle Up. But his, our society is tied to, workism, in that, like, we get our worth from our work. And I think it has to kind of be this collective deprogramming of realizing that we are worth more than that, and, Ellers, you said the decoupling of here's what I do for work and here's like what my passion is. I would want it to be my work is my passion, right? Like, what I do for my job is my passion, and I think and for some people, I think it would give them a UBI and that kind of thing in place would give them kind of the freedom to figure out what their passion is. I don't know if anybody else can relate to this, but for me, it took me a really long time to arrive at that, to whatever my consistent passion was. And it's taking me even longer to then be able to do that passion, and I think for me, I would like it to kind of be intertwined in a way, in that, like, I'm doing this because I love it, not I'm doing this because I have to.
Right. Because we go ahead.
Well, I just cut out your other Erica quote. Erica, you're just not kind of probably the other one was relevant too. But
at the same time.
I forget what I was even going to say. I think I was just going to say, like, and it's just interesting because it's like we say, like, my work is not, like, I don't want my work to be my life, but I think we also say that because it's gotten so out of hand, and like we could easily have a future. It's like that concept doesn't have to be so, like, malignant. Like, it's just that too many of us are doing work we don't care about. Too many of us are doing work we don't care about 40 or 40 plus hours a week. And like we kind of mentioned earlier, like having 8+ hour days and coming home and having zero creative energy. I feel that all the time. Like, and even as someone, and that's the thing, is that I will add to that, I've been lucky enough that a lot of what I do now is creative. Like I do a lot of dance stuff. It's a lot more like educational based and with kids, and like that's where the money is, like but even that, like, and I talk with people, that teachers and my friends a lot, who do the same thing or involved in like theater and stuff like that. And we have those conversations of like we're in a way living the dream. Like we are making money from something we love and we are living in a beautiful place, but we're doing so much of it. In order to pay our bills, we have to get this many hours. We can only charge this much. Otherwise people are like, oh, that's way too much. Like, I'm not going to pay you that much, to like teach my kid a dance or whatever, like, and so it's like, we have to do so much of that we don't have time for our creative energies to like do new things and try new things and then just be artists in that way. We have to, it's like, we even have that job sentiment even when we are lucky enough to do something that is creative and is something we love.
Yeah.
I'll say too, just about, because I get a lot of people think that automation taking away all the jobs is a very pessimistic look on the future. And I think that's totally the wrong way to look at it. This is the only time in the history of humans that we can even be having a conversation about billions of people, having a choice. The point is, we just don't have the societal economic structure right now to support that. But we get to make those choices. And we're in a situation right now where we could get ahead of this. And we have to decide, what do we value? Some of the best people I know, like you meet them and you're just like, wow, they're amazing people. They're taking care of their parents, or they're taking care of their brothers or sisters. They're not making much money, but I would sit down and have a conversation with them any day of the week than a 6-figure accountant or whatever. The artist that's in the van down by the river is a lot more interesting to me than the person. So I just think we can shift this, but it's the only time in history that we've been able to talk about this. And I think so it's not pessimistic. This is going to happen whether we believe it or not. And so we need to figure out how to keep people alive, give them something to live for. And so I just answer, because a lot of people think that, oh, the robots are coming, they're taking away our jobs. Honestly, let them take the jobs. We've got better things to do. And the things we're better at are being humans, connecting with people, telling stories. They can do all the rest.
Yeah, I really agree with that. I think I have that thought a lot too, actually, is that like automation does not have to be a bad thing at all. It's only a bad thing if we don't have something like UBI in place. That's when it is a bad thing, is when we are then have people suffering because of it, and the company is just making more and more and more and more and more money. Which is why he's talking about it, right? This is the whole reason we have the book.
I just saw a comment that said, ouch to accountants. I am not knocking accountants. One conscious being, I swear.
It's like, there's nothing wrong with wanting to make money. There's nothing wrong with that. We live in a capitalist society. That is literally how we measure success. And it's so frustrating when you see that. I think the first thing that comes to my mind, and I'm not a big Kardashian fan or anything like that, but I find it so interesting. Like I watch from afar, and that's so interesting that, of like people who like, I don't really like them, but but they're doing that thing where you're like find a clever way to make money, and you make a lot of money. And it's just so interesting, the response that things like that can get. So yeah. Oh, and then I wanted to. Oh no, go ahead with the comment. Oh yeah, make money. There's nothing wrong with money. Don't always translate to money, honey.
I don't know why I totally read that in Jonathan Van Ness voice.
And what voice?
Jonathan Van Ness, JVN.
Who is that?
From Queer Eye.
Oh.
Oh my God, you guys.
None of us do. Us and your
I have no idea.
Different conversation to have off the live stream.
That's great. I did want to get back to one thing though, because before we we're at the hour, so maybe in a little bit we can start moving into more of the solutions. But one thing that came up that really interested me that I would like to talk about more is the idea of deprogramming. What are some of the things that you think lead to that issue, that get in the way of people being able to reprogram? Like, we don't really have a society, I feel, that values that. And so, what are your guys' take on that issue in our society today?
I mean, if you get it down to kind of the most basic aspect, it's, scarcity versus abundance mindset, I feel like. And if you've ever been in a position of scarcity, it's very, very easy to get in that mindset and then start just sliding down that path. So I think what a lot of Andrew was trying to do and a lot of what we're trying to do is give people the opportunity to have that abundance mindset. So you're not just focused on like, okay, how the hell do I survive? Like, if you get past that point, give people the opportunity to actually have, okay, how do I thrive? You know what I mean? Because right now, especially, people just get in that mindset, and it's not a very creative place. It's not a place where, you're very happy with what you're doing. So I think we just need to get people past that scarcity mindset, to be able to reprogram.
Yeah, right. I understand it, because I find myself doing it. In my job, I've got a lot of freedom. I work from home, but I also work nights and weekends. I work all the time, and sometimes I have more time off. And I find myself, when I'm working out at the gym, I feel like I should be working on my business. When I'm working on my business, I just wish I were writing my book. Why do I have to do this? I wish I could just do my passion. When I'm writing on my book, I feel like I should, get up off the couch and be working out. And I think, it's, for me, I struggle with that all the time. And with this, I think, so it's going to be hard. I mean, it's going to be hard for everyone to redefine, our lives. But I also think it's really important that we tell people whose job or profession are on the way out that you aren't worth $0, that you are worth just inherently, you are, I'd say, part of our country, but also just part of the world. I think this needs to go beyond the whole USA #1 thing. I think we need to figure out at some point a global universal basic income. That you have worth, and you know what, we're going to help you, and we're going to figure out this together. We're all so much more alike than we are different. And I think people that have already lost their jobs, if they're working in coal mines or if they're working in manufacturing plants, it's not your problem. It's not you or your choices that put you there. And guess what? We're all very close to that. And so let's all figure this all out together. And I think Andrew Yang has spelled out in this book very well where we're going, where we've been, why we're here. And it's a pretty easy read too. But it's going to be tough, but we do have to redefine it for sure.
Yeah. I think the unity issue, the scarcity mindset issue are two big reasons that it's going to be hard to. What he's proposing is it's a big he was talking about in the Yang Speaks podcast about project like rebuild, or rebuilding this country, and that rebuild is not infrastructure only. That rebuild is the cultural conscience and the the minds of so many individuals. And I think getting to the idea of culture too, like I really hope that people think about culture and that there's different cultures of different generations. There's different cultures of just all the different regions of this country. And we can find common ground and move forward, but we have to be cognizant of that going forward. Human-centered rebuild. Yeah. Megan, did you have any thoughts?
Sorry, what was the last thing you just said? Sorry, I was like, some of these comments are really good, and
Megan,
so
you're on a
trying
live channel right now.
I know. I'm like, some of these comments are really good. People are giving like super good input, and like, there is like a 10-second delay between like, you know, where we're streaming from and YouTube, and so sometimes I get the comments so late, and I'm like, oh, that one was really good.
Yeah.
I wish I could comment. I can't comment like James Ellers, the tech guru over there that's got 2 windows open.
Sorry.
Comment, but I can't.
Well, what are some of the comments that, or what the question was about the idea of reprogramming, of people needing to be able to reprogram their minds.
Yeah, I mean, I think I agree with you know, one of the reasons I didn't really pipe up is I think I agree with everything everybody's saying. I think, you know, he kind of even goes into that. He has like the whole chapter where he kind of goes into the scarcity mindset, and it's the chapter that made me think of what we're living through literally right now. Yeah, you know, that one. And then he also goes into it in the chapter, The Shape We're In / Disintegration, chapter 15. Mm-hmm. He goes into that too. And it kind of just made me think of that. He really goes into what the issues are. I think one of the things that kind of helps me is just having conversations. You know what I mean? Mm-hmm. I think we're so afraid to have conversations with people because we're afraid of confrontation. We're afraid of threats. We're afraid of arguments. We're afraid of offending people. And I think you can have a conversation. And the thing is, having a conversation means you might be offended. Having a conversation means you might not agree. But, you know, through the conversations, I mean, you guys have literally said on this live stream alone how you've had discussions with people and now they've changed their minds. You know what I mean? You don't have to have one conversation. It's several conversations over the course of a while, you know, and you plant that seed and you know, they might not see it then, but they're seeing it now. You know what I mean? And I
also think too, the conversation, it's the only way we can solve problems. But like, I try not to go into conversations thinking about how I can change their mind. I go into conversations, I want my mind changed. I've thought about these things very hard. And if someone can change my opinion on something, that is really powerful, you know? So like, but I think exactly what you're talking about. Like, it's hard for people to talk about race and religion and sexuality and politics. But if we can't talk about these things with fear of offending someone or whatever, how are we going to figure it out? You know, and I think you're right. Conversation is where it's at.
Yeah, I just think that's a really underrated, you know, form of, you know, deprogramming, especially people. I think we're just really afraid to have conversations, and
and we also we don't value or fully understand the value of listening and what it really means to just listen. And I mean, a conversation is a two-way thing. I'm not saying you shouldn't have an opinion, you shouldn't express your opinion, but I think the point of what Trevor said of like, or just going into a conversation at least with the goal to not convince someone. Don't go into the conversation. It can kind of apply to some like creative pursuits. Like, you don't want to necessarily go into writing a book saying, this is the book I want to write. It's not always the best goal. Like maybe for something like a book like this, that's a little bit more like what you would do. But those are just kind of two in the same to me. Like, just that general open-mindedness of like not projecting everything about the way you see the world onto everything that you do. Like, there's going to be some of that, of course, but we need to get, as a society, I think we need to practice that as much as we can, on Twitter in real life, of just being open-minded and saying like, I'm just gonna listen and think about it, and I'm not even gonna make a judgment right away. I'll sleep on it, like I'll hear someone else's opinion.
And I think that's something we kind of forget that a conversation includes. I think we always think of our side of the conversation, which is the talking part, right? Or, we just think about how we're talking and contributing, but part of contributing to a conversation is listening, right? It's a two-sided thing. One person's talking, one person's listening. That means you're the one listening sometimes, you know what I mean? Yeah. And I think exactly like what you're saying, listening is super important. Because the thing is, too, if you don't listen to other people aren't going to listen to you, because they're going to notice that. They're going to notice. I mean, think about it. Think about why we don't like having conversations on Twitter, for example, with, MAGA bros and Bernie bros and stuff like that, because we know they're not listening to us, right?
They call us Karen and stuff.
Just me.
I'm reading The Righteous Mind by Jonathan Haidt right now. It talks about all of that and why everyone is so biased to their own opinions. And it's really interesting. It's a good book.
Yeah.
We'll link that. Awesome for the recommendation.
Yes.
Let's look at some comments.
So there was one by One Conscious Being at 1:06 p.m. Since we haven't answered many of their questions. Their question.
They're asking some really deep ones, and I'm like, I want to get to it.
So listen to the comments.
I know.
So their again, it was at 1:06. It said, "How about answering how the value purchasing power will stay relevant if of free money? Does the USA debt mean anything?" So what we're talking about. Again, this is kind of a policy thing. So when we're talking about UBI, we're talking about specifically paired with a VAT, a value added tax. So it's not free money. We're not saying, hey, print money so we can have it. It's like, no. So companies like Amazon's the big one right now that needs to be hit hard with a VAT, because the amount of money they're accumulating is ridiculous. So we're saying tax these companies that are leveraging artificial intelligence technology to make more money. Use that money from a value-added tax or a consumption tax and fund a UBI based on that. So it's just a never-ending circle, right? The money from these companies that are automating everything away goes into a UBI that goes to the people, and then the money from the UBI goes back in these companies in the circle. So we're not going to devalue anything by implementing a UBI as long as it's tied to a value-added tax.
Totally. And correct. It's all about supply and demand. So it's not about increasing the supply of money. And even when we did during the recession, we didn't see significant inflation. So I think other people, I've got a degree in economics. I really enjoy it. But the whole inflation argument shouldn't be what people focus on.
Yeah. And I appreciate the comment, because it made me realize that with this whole emergency UBI push we're pushing for right now, we also need to be pushing for a VAT to be able to fund it so it can go long term. So mental comment to everyone. We need to be pushing for a VAT right now.
For the sake of that comment, I'll quickly read the one thing that he really says in the book, because I was able to find it. So he talks about how 1.3 trillion per year. The cost would be an additional 1.3 trillion per year on top of existing welfare programs. And keep in mind that this book is like a little dated at this point, but I'll read it anyway. The cost of 1.3 trillion seems like an awful lot. For reference, the federal budget is about 4 trillion and the entire US economy about 19 trillion. But there are myriad ways to pay for it. The most sensible way to pay for it, in my view, would be with a value-added tax, VAT, a consumption tax that would generate income from the people and businesses that benefit from society the most. Here's the challenge. We need to extract more of the value from automation in order to pay for public goods and support displaced workers. So that kind of says it all right there.
Yeah, so he thinks about, the solution and how to fund the solution. So it's all in there.
And this is a good follow-up to that. He's at the end of this chapter, then he quotes, the chapter is called The Freedom Dividend, and it's in the third part, so it kind of brings us into part 3 anyway. This is the creator of Magic the Gathering, Richard Garfield. He quotes him on UBI. UBI is not shaming everyone participates. It does not try to control the economy from the top. People can spend their money on what they want and therefore steer the economy as it has always been best steered, by the consumer. It could free up the job market in ways that are hard to appreciate. I am entranced by UBI not just as a needed fix, but as an institute that unleashes people's potential. I find myself convinced that UBI is natural and would lead to a more productive and happier world, and it would allow us to fully harness people's creativity and the technology they create.
So
kind of all of that.
That was great. I think so. It looks like Austin Brown. I wish I could highlight this. It's at 112. We're printing money right now with no VAT and giving nearly all of it to companies. So one thing I think is important to understand is that the money supply, increasing it, is it goes to banks, and banks are going to lend that out to the big boys first. So by the time any inflation actually hits, meaning the cost of goods goes up, the people that get hit with that inflation the most are poor people, because the money gets to them last. And so, one thing I saw the other day was, $5 trillion has been spent on this stimulus. If you divided that by 250 million American adults, that'd be $20,000. So we could have given every American adult $1,000 a month for 12 months and saved 40% of what the stimulus has been so far for coronavirus. And the thing about it is, when you give middle-class people, when you give poor people money, they're not eating it, they're spending it. And so they're going to go out in their communities, they're going to go to the restaurants that are struggling, they're going to go spend money in their neighborhoods. And that's where, even if the supply of money is increased like a stimulus, the inflation, we're getting the money to the people to spend it first instead of loans to big companies. And that's a big difference in how you tackle this problem.
And what's a detail that just made me think about, how am I doing it now? Is getting back to the book we read last month, Made by Stephanie Land. She talks about how when she got a big tax return, I think, she spent some of it on organic food and better food for her and her kid. And what's so cool about that is in a way, that trickle up idea is you could have more people who have more money to spend on not the things that are harming our environment. So it's I remember he would talk about this in his stump speech of you could literally and it's people who maybe, some of those people might even not believe in climate change, but they have the agency now to make some more responsible money decisions, and that could actually have a positive effect on the environment. There's just so much opportunity when people have more agency with their economic standing.
And just the daily interactions you'll have with people. When people are financially stressed, they're not going to let you cut in traffic. They're not going to give you a smile at the grocery store. They're going to be less patient with their kids. All of these intangible benefits of a universal basic income, they're not even calculated in the $1,000 a month, and those are the things that I think will compound why universal basic income is going to be so powerful, and why, frankly, I don't think we really have any studies or anything we can look at to show how helpful a universal basic income, because I don't think it's been at the scale and the size that we want it to be at. So I don't even think we can look to Alaska, or we can look to some of these cities that have done it. It's going to be, it's going to make every interaction we have with people better, because they're not going to be worried, if their heat is going to get turned off. And
I could add to that because I'm a quarter Pueblo Indian, and I actually I'd get money from the tribe, and the whole tribe gets money. But they send a letter every time that reminds us, hey, this is not guaranteed. This is I don't know a lot of the history about it, but I'm sure, we maybe get 1 or 2, 3 at most checks a year. And you don't know when they're coming. They just kind of announce it. And then they always remind you, like, this is not, even though it kind of does consistently come, there's that mindset that thing that is good has this mindset of not this mindset of scarcity attached to it, because they just don't want the people to think that it's like a guaranteed, or it's almost even like that they deserve it. It's really interesting.
Setting expectations.
Yeah.
I think
there's a lot of. Go ahead.
No, finish your.
I was gonna say there's probably a lot of examples that we could turn to, and it's what would be probably frustrating if people who would oppose the idea would turn to and say, like, but like, we haven't done it yet. We haven't had an entire population that, you know, for even like kind of getting back to his older plan, which who knows what going forward he would do, but the idea of it not stacking on top of all welfare programs, you know. But then there's so many people that are just having more of an abundance mindset, that it would in some ways positively affect people who aren't able to get, or who didn't, I don't know. That whole thing to me is like, doesn't really make any sense. I think a lot of people who are getting $500 in food stamps would rather get $1,000 a month. But anyway, it would just, there's no like actual pilot test to see like that broad of an improvement to society yet.
Yeah. This kind of changes the conversation a little bit, but I think A Mind with Heart has a good question.
Yeah,
our government is owned by corporations that don't care about people. Will that change if Ying is president? I don't know.
So if you look at the couple policies he wanted to implement, democracy dollars and ranked choice voting, also overturning Citizens United, just those few things would completely, for the most part, cut out corporations, because just democracy dollars, like giving the people that much money to fund their own candidates, would pretty much take away all the power corporations have to be able to lobby like they are right now. So yeah, they wouldn't have that much of a stranglehold as they do right now.
I'm sorry, just to mention the comments, Austin, your math is way off. It is, it's not $60.
That's not.
Yeah, 6 trillion divided by 100 million is not $60.
No, they're missing a couple zeros on the trillion.
That's it. Just a couple zeros. Just a few. 6 trillion it would be 6,000 billion. It's a big number. I know it gets confusing, but
yeah.
Oh, he wanted to make sure he wasn't talking about you guys.
Not too bad.
Yeah. So we got it taken care of. We don't have to keep talking about it in the comments. We addressed it. All right. Onward.
Onward. Yeah.
Forward.
I'm like loving the comments. Like, has anyone? I've been trying to like keep on the book. So if you guys have,
yeah, that's why I wasn't paying attention at that one point.
Yeah.
Right.
I was like trying to, and I like can't.
Ellers, you would say that. Seeing a lot of love in the comments. I love that.
Yeah.
I'm telling you guys, humanity's first is still picking up.
If you had a question that we didn't answer that was to do with the book, or just to do with right now, with things like what we've been talking about with the coronavirus right now and the stimulus checks right now, like these are all like things we would love to talk about. So yeah, if you feel like we missed your comment, please put it back.
Yeah, I promise you guys, it's because there are a lot of comments coming in. It's not because we're not
I
paying
love
attention.
all the comments coming in. That's
Oh my
awesome.
gosh,
awesome.
Audrey, I was just about to bring this up.
Yay!
I am obsessed with this.
Really? This is something I want to do. Like it needs to happen.
I love it. Yeah. Like I am, and Daniel just brought it up too. I am obsessed with this. I think Kateri and I hopped on at like 2, and I think I talked about it for like 30 minutes because I'm just so interested in it. I think to me that was, besides UBI, that was one of the things he brought up that I was like, this seems like something an evolved society would do. Why aren't we doing more of this? You know, and then it was kind of funny because I was kind of thinking of Animal Crossing. So everybody's super into Animal Crossing right now. And, you know, one of the things in Animal Crossing is you're basically helping build an island society, and you do tasks. And when you do these tasks, you get Nook miles, which are essentially social credits, which is like kind of cool, right? And for me, somebody who, my husband and I really we really value volunteer work, and I think if we had the time and the disposable income to be able to, I think that would be something we'd really want to like do have a big chunk of our time go towards, is just helping out other people. And what was interesting is he mentions one guy who, because I think was it in Tulsa that they were talking about, he was talking about a program specifically that does social credits. I think
so.
I think. But he was talking about how the one guy who was in the social credit program that one of the communities there has, he was saying he doesn't even necessarily use his social credits. He donates them to other people so that if they don't have the time or the means to help other people, he's then donating those social credits so that they can use them. And I thought that was really cool too. So yeah, I just thought that whole thing is super awesome.
It's brilliant. The market right now rewards your ability to figure out how to make money. And if we could figure out a structure that rewards good deeds, and helping people out and caring and teaching and learning and volunteering. When I read about that, that's when it's just, you start to think Andrew is next level. And it's hard to even talk to people. That's why I talk so much about UBI with people, because I think it's a little bit even more concrete. You talk about that and they go, oh, that's just, you're talking about a utopia. That's just a fairy tale. And that, and it's like, well, yeah, but isn't that somewhere you'd want to live? We can make that happen. We can figure this out together. Absolutely. That's one of my favorite of his.
Mm-hmm. There's a question. We can just answer that.
So from what I understand, it would need whatever governing body that's in charge of like keeping track and instituting them, they would have to do the initial conversion of a certain amount of money into a certain amount of credits to distribute them. And then people from there could buy in with credits, or they can get them other ways. That's actually something I've been looking into, because I want I was trying to think, like, would a nonprofit be the head of this? Or, I mean, this is something we could talk about offline, but that's like, this is literally something I've been like, because like we're putting together Forward United. I was like, how would that, I want to do it. So
yeah.
Sorry.
Yeah.
I mean, there could certainly be more pilot programs.
Yeah, for sure.
That's why I told Kateri before, I said, this could literally be its own live stream, is just talking about social credits and how that could be implemented. Should it be implemented at a federal level? Should it be implemented at a state level? Should it just be community level? You know what I mean? Like, I think we could have a big conversation about that. But yeah, I think that's definitely an interesting part in the book that I didn't necessarily hear a ton of people talking about until I read it. And I was like, this is, fucking awesome. Like, why aren't we doing, you know what I mean? Like,
and I think it also that, like, connection, I think institutionally we've lost, I don't go to church. I grew up going to church, and I think social connections and webs, a lot of people aren't doing as much of that anymore. And so, retired people that can go do handyman work and or whatever. I think it would be a way for neighborhoods and communities to have this network, and it could really build on that. I think, again, there's intangible benefits to things like that. It's not just the credits, it's making, saying hi to people on a daily basis and helping someone out, taking value in helping people out.
Yeah, that actually makes me think of Animal Crossing again. Sorry, guys, I'm really into it. It's so calming. It's so calming. It is. Anyway.
Is it like Sims?
I never played Sims, but it's just like
the one thing I ever played.
It's just, to me, it's a very positive form of escapism. But actually, in the game, you do get social credits for saying hi to your island neighbors. Like, you do. If you say hi to them and not just say hi, but have conversations with them, you actually get like the Nook miles for having conversations with your neighbors. So yeah, I just think it's really cool.
I mean, when I studied abroad in France, and then we can talk about his idea for a foreign exchange program, which I love. That was another idea I love. But I studied abroad in France, and my boyfriend came out to visit me. And even more than me, he was struck by in French culture, like in a lot of European culture, they're really uptight in a lot of ways, but like we're all really loud, and Americans are really loud and open and hug me and like, but and they're not like that really in Europe, but they say hi. And if you pass someone on the street, they will say bonjour. And if you walk into a store, you say bonjour. Like if you are an American in France, and you walk in, and like they'll know that you're a foreigner, like they'll know you're not French because you didn't say hi. So it's interesting that like we don't really have that here. It's more like act like you go walk down the street and act like there is no other human there.
Yeah,
act
but
like you cannot see them.
West Coast thing. When I moved to Seattle, I'm all like, "Hey, everybody! Hi, my name's Trevor," and people are like, "Chill out, dude. You're all the Seattle freeze, the Seattle chill." And we all make jokes. It's why we're doing so good during quarantine coronavirus, is because everyone here is so antisocial to begin with. So,
oh shit.
That's interesting.
I think the West Coast, that's more in the Midwest and New York, Chicago, people talk. I mean, it's all over the place.
Yeah.
So there you go.
Someone, Tikisha loves the
American exchange program. I like that. Yes. This is kind of interesting too. So back when I was a kid, my dad and stepmom participated in their church in something called the Fresh Air program. And it kind of made me, this thing that he was talking about kind of made me think of that, where kids from like the city would come out they live in Virginia, and they would come out to Virginia for the whole summer, and just like they would take them to the beach, and they would take them hiking, and they would take them to the mountain, like stuff like that. And that's what it made me think of. I was like, yes, this is a cool idea.
The Brian Stevenson, who wrote Just Mercy, which was a movie, I saw him talk a couple years ago, and he talks about proximity and being, when we get close to people, whether it's homeless people or addicts or rich people or whatever, we learn their humanity, that we're all really so much more alike. What I love about the American exchange program is that we tend to think of, the South or the East Coast or different regions as the other. But I think if we had high school students or kids that were visiting other parts of the country, meeting people, we'd see that we all have so much more alike than we have different. And that's one of those programs where it's like, again, next level smart Andrew Yang. You tell people that and they go, yeah, that's a good idea. Senior high schools going to different parts of the country and volunteering in towns. It's brilliant. It's brilliant.
It also reminds me of like when it seemed to add to his stump speech, the idea of, he was like, Trump wanted to drain the swamp. I want to distribute the swamp. And I was like, my jaw dropped to the floor. I was like, that is genius. Like, it's just one of those things, almost like back to the conversation of deprogramming, and just like, it's not so much a deprogramming, but it's just like our ability to think outside the box has been so like narrowed, I feel. Cause like I consider myself as someone who tends to think outside the box. I've never thought of that, Well,
yeah, I think it's almost like, I think that's like, we're kind of afraid to think out of the box, we're afraid to get our hopes up of like, here's an idea that's great. And then everyone's like, your idea sucks. Shut up. You know what I mean? Like,
or it's just not going to happen.
Yeah. That'll or that. Happen. It's like, that's not going to happen, Yeah. Exactly. And so it's like, we're almost like afraid to, I'm the same way. I think I'm pretty, like, I think out of the box, but then I hear things and I'm like, can that happen? Like, do I dare hope? You know what I mean? It's almost like, yeah, do I dare hope? But yeah, I think Ryan has a good point. Certain people aren't understanding of other cultures or can't afford to learn about other cultures. Yeah.
Yeah.
That's like,
so if you had that's just like his basically whole message. Like, the systems need to have things in place that prioritize these things, that prioritize human connection, that prioritize learning about people that are different from you and seeing the value in that. If the system valued that, so many more people would value that. Like, we get so upset, like that whole thing that like I talk to people now and I like want to take them down a Yang rabbit hole when they're just like, when they have like, why do people just like not believe in climate change, or like why, like like just be like, all these people are so stupid. They're so stupid. I'm like, well, that's actually getting into really dangerous
100%.
phenomenological territory, thinking territory. First of all, second of all, like think harder. Like think why do all these people, I don't know, like just large groups of people in different places of the world, and some of them, a lot of them in your own backyard, a lot of the time, think differently from you, and in some ways not positive. Maybe it's not their fault.
Just a side note too, I really think school in general is going to have to change. When we go to school, we sit in rows, and I mean, school's kind of set up to get us ready for the factory job that's not going to be here anymore. I mean, when we have all the information, I mean, I can Google anything on my phone. Do we really need to learn? I mean, I spent, I think, 3 years of my life learning cursive, or memorizing, presidents in order. I think school in general is going to have to change. And I think that American exchange program is something that, like, the value you can take, if someone's never been on vacation with their family, their family's never been able to afford to go somewhere, but your school is going to take you and 10 other kids to another part of the country, and you get to meet people. Those could be lifelong relationships. I mean, we could literally be seeing, people changing and becoming, in formative years, teaching them some real skills. It's important.
I would also love for that program to have a national park element, where when you go to these different places, you see how some of the states that don't get, like California has so much, right? But there's so many other states that have so much natural beauty, and there's so many learning opportunities. I would love to see that element be a part of it too. So I mean, there's a whole chapter on education. One of the later chapters. Which one is it? But I think a lot of his idea is just.
Sorry, Kateri, building people 225.
Oh, is building people?
It might be. I mean, that's education in the age of automation might be what you're talking about.
Yeah. Just the idea. I mean, like, so much of what his thinking is, and what makes his ideas great are he places trust in humanity and says all we need is the system to incentivize people to do the right things, because indirectly or sometimes directly, the system currently incentivizes people to a lot of times do the wrong things. And so you can take that and apply it to everything. It applies to healthcare. Use a healthcare chapter, but we can talk about education. I mean, like the education system, like this is something that was really interesting to me. Okay. So my dad is Republican and has become more and more conservative through his life. There's a lot of talk on conservative media in general about like this very critical of universities, to the point that he actually said to me, and this is when I was in college, that he didn't think there was a point. Like those places are pointless. Like they're taking your money and stuff like that. And I did not like that. Like I didn't agree. I was like, no, And also there's like the whole thing about like, them teaching wokeness and PC-ness, and that's kind of another topic. But that's just some of the big things that they seem to really care about. And so what he talked about actually is this chapter, and then there's a chapter in the first half talking about some of the issues with the education system and the universities and stuff like that. But it's like, yeah, they are really for profit. Like there are some issues there, and I can kind of see why, there's just myriad issues of the money being tied in with these universities, and them caring about just getting people for these really high paying jobs only, and not caring about learning.
And when you hear about Harvard getting, $8 million, I mean, there's not cool,
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. Yeah.
And his point about why if universities are so great, he makes the point in building people, I believe, that like, why aren't there more new, good universities. And like that made me think about like, yeah, like it's interesting because like there's that stigma now, like when you hear about the new kind of online universities, like they're not real, they're not good, they're not, you know, accredited, at least socially accredited, you know. But like why is that? Like why
But
can't there
things,
be
see, and
new
that's what's cool.
universities?
Yeah, things are going to change though. I mean, and I think we should talk at some point in Gang Book Club about, you know, people's favorite YouTube channels or their favorite podcasts. Because if you want to learn about quantum mechanics, you do not need to go to a physics class in university.
Mhm.
You can learn everything. And then you have also, you know, the $15 a month services like Skillshare or Brilliant.org and all that stuff. But you just have brilliant people making YouTube videos online. Of course, you have to be careful. You know, YouTube isn't necessarily everything isn't fact checked on YouTube. But school is changing the way people are learning, and I think like there's so many awesome educators on YouTube and podcasts that are out there that are experts that I think you could listen to an hour, you know, on the way to work and learn more about politics or history or physics than going to a $40,000 a year university.
Well, and it's something else Erica's touching on too, is just the equality of it too. Like these colleges and universities cost tens and hundreds of thousands of dollars. Like which families are actually going to be able to go there? Like not only does it not make sense in the aspect of why it costs so much, but then it creates a whole other effect in terms of equality. It's just needs some changing.
Erica, and I'd be really interested to know, Erica, because you work at a private school, I believe, right? And the work that I do with schools is all with private schools because I'm like independent contractor, like, and I can't really work with public schools, right? Very much, really. And doing that has been an interesting process for me because there's this kind of idea of, you know, just private schools being like just for the wealthy, and like I never really like thought there was really any value other than like they're there for the wealthy. But what is kind of interesting is like when you're a private school, you do have the ability to think outside the box more. Unfortunately, the instances or the interactions I've had with the private schools here, it kind of, I see the connection between them, even though they're like K through 12 or whatever, with what he's talking about with universities, where they're a part of this system too. Like they are very much like they're existing to turn out people who go to Yale and to Harvard, and you know, so it's like I think they're very much held back by being able to be innovative because they're trying to get people to basically get into STEM and be lawyers and doctors. But yeah, I think it's an interesting topic because my mind was kind of more open to some of that. Low income private school, interesting.
It's also a sensitive topic. My dad was an administrator for special education, so he's got a lot of very passionate opinions about public school and funding. And on one end, I think, you know, public school is a service. But we also need things that work too. And there has to be equal opportunity. You know, we can't have the best schools and the best things going to the most prominent zip codes out there. So it's a huge topic and not a simple solution. But there's a lot that needs to change with it, I think, because and I think a lot of school too is childcare for a lot of parents. You know, with schools being out right now, we don't have kids. But a lot of my clients and a lot of people I know do, and they are going through some interesting times right now. And I think if we're going to be honest about valuing our teachers, I think now would be a good time to think about how much we pay them to take care of the kids of our society that are going to be growing up. They are just about every teacher I meet is a saint, and they should be paid more than they are for sure.
Yeah, my mom's a teacher, and I 1,000% agree with that.
Yeah.
1,000%. Yeah, I think that's I think the childcare aspect it's very important to kind of remember that is they're not just teaching the kids, they're watching the kids. You know what I mean? And they're kind of raising the kids. in a way, not raising them, but they are a very important part of that, you know, and absolutely. I think that's definitely not something that is taken into account when they're talking about salaries. And not just that, but you have to have a degree to be a teacher, and degrees are expensive, man. Like, and not just that, not just the degree, but then you have to pay for the testing and to keep up your licensing. And then if you want, so for example, my mom, she got her master's degree to be a reading specialist so she can diagnose and help kids with dyslexia and other learning disorders specific to reading. And she had to get her master's for that. And like, I think she didn't even get that much of a pay raise, you know what I mean? And I think that's definitely something that that is not taken into account.
And think about, I mean, I remember early on, you know, I would love to be a teacher. I think I would enjoy it. I love reading. I love talking about books. I love all of that stuff. But I knew really early on that teaching probably wasn't for me, and it had a lot to do with the pay. You know, I'm not going to lie about that. And so how are we incentivizing, you know, some of the most important jobs we're going to have in our market is going to be teaching kids how to be valuable, contributing people in our society. And I think we need to, you know, stop just thanking teachers and actually pay them money so we can also get the ones that are passionate about it and care about it and are innovative and creative. And I think
have more autonomy in their own classrooms. Have more autonomy in their own classrooms is a big thing.
That's extremely important that you said that, Trevor, because, you know, my mom was a teacher, but my husband also did teach for America in between college and medical school. And part of what he was saying is that you don't have and not like in every case, but in a lot of cases, you don't have the best and brightest in the schools teaching, because the best and brightest are going to go where the money is, right? Because they just paid a lot of money for their school. So now they have to have a job to be able to pay for that. And, you know, that kind of goes into, and the same thing, you know, for me, I even thought about teaching at one point because I was like, oh, hey, I have an English degree. I don't like teaching. I don't want to be a teacher. I don't I don't have that kind of mindset. You know what I mean? But that's what people kind of
ask though, right? Like, yes, oh, you're going to teach your English degree. You're going to teach, right? Like, what else are you going to do with that?
Yes. And I'm kind of like, no, like I don't want to be a teacher. And I don't think it would be fair to the kids to have someone teaching them who doesn't give a shit. You know what I mean? Like, I mean, I do. But at the same time, I'm just like, I like kids, but I don't want to teach them. And I don't want to spend time in the classroom with them. And I think that would reflect in my teaching. You know what I mean? And I'm like, okay with saying that because I'm not a teacher. And you know what I mean? But I feel like people don't really have the financial freedom in some cases to be able to say that. But I think it's definitely interesting that you said that, Trevor, because it's very true. You know, people do have to, I think, you know, people who are interested in teaching, part of the aspect of them not going into it is it's just not great pay. Yeah. And it should be, right? Because like everybody who goes on to make money, a lot of them got there because of their teachers, right? Yeah. And it's just so interesting.
But from a teacher herself, so Erica made this really interesting point. Pay is good, but freedom is an essential part to enjoying the job. And I think about how, like Megan and I both have moms who are teachers, and my mom was teaching at a really low, like maybe the most low income school in Modesto. And like her frustration was not necessarily with the pay, I guess. I remember like it was like coming home every night at dinner time, like talking about how frustrated, how like there was just more rules and more guidelines and more regulations. And like I was telling Megan this a while ago, but like it was like her form of protest to say, I will sing one song every day and I will read one picture book every day. And if I don't have time to like get to some of the curriculum you want me to, I'm reading a book. I'm reading them like these are second graders, and I'm reading them a picture book every day, and we're singing a song every day. And like that was her form of protest, like, you know. So it's like there's a problem there.
Yeah.
There's
a lot of good comments. I'm trying to like, oh, what's next?
I know.
I'm reading all
Audrey. Yeah, Audrey has a good point. Many good teachers leave after 5 years. Yep. Okay, Erica has a question for you, James. How do you feel about your kids' education?
I mean, my kids are only 3 and 5, so we're not even there yet. But I think we already, because we do, again, just for family reasons, we had to move back to my hometown probably like 9 months ago. So it's not exactly a place where the schools are very good. Like my wife and I both went to school up here, and it's just like I was not a very good student, like in high school and everything, just because I got to the point where, if it didn't seem relevant in my life, I just wouldn't pay attention. But that's besides the point. So we're probably going to homeschool at this point, just because of technology nowadays too, and we want I don't know, coronavirus stuff too. It's like they're going to be, I guess they're going to be at school at home either way. But that's something
has your 3-year-old read The War on Normal People yet?
You know what? She's asking. So they see this book and they both are like Andrew Yang, but there's not a picture version of the book. So
not yet.
Yang,
get on it.
So Yang, we need a children's version of this.
Yes.
So
Ellers,
The War on Normal People.
Yeah. Ellers, I was actually, my mom homeschooled us for 2 years. And that was actually 2 of like my favorite years of my education that I can remember. And part of it is because, first of all, I spent a lot of time with my mom and dad. But second, we got to learn things that I never would have learned in a classroom. I mean, she would take us on like field trips all the time to actually learn about the things we were reading about and like experience them and all of that. So I look on it like fondly, and I also know though from experience that homeschooling can be pretty like kind of expensive, which is like kind of dumb in my opinion. But
yeah, I mean, it's something where we both look back and like, I didn't feel anything super valuable of the public school system when I went through it here. So we just feel like we can probably, I mean, and the whole thing with being able to spend more time with them too is a big thing, because we have 2 kids, and we think with technology nowadays, and we've looked at the homeschool thing, it's actually a lot more doable now. Could be a good option. So that's what we're looking at.
So what are some of the like improvements that you guys feel like could easily be made? And I'm thinking of like things of like time and space and stuff we're learning now with coronavirus. Like, first of all, I think we should not start so early. And I understand that there's going to be that just need, at least in the immediate sense, like with UBI and automation things changing, like that will change. But parents being at work. But yeah, the kids can go and have breakfast and story time, and do we have to have them there every day, Monday through Friday, or I don't know, just like, I mean, thinking outside the box.
That was our opinion, because our kids, like, they know way more than I knew at that age. Like, just the amount of stuff they'd learned, because we'll download like educational apps on the iPad and things like this. So they're learning to like do math and read and everything while they're playing games. Like, there's so many different things where, again, just like everything else, technology is not a bad thing. Like, if we can make it work for everyone, like, we should leverage it.
Yeah.
I don't have kids, and I haven't spent a lot of time thinking about education, but from and this is also a sensitive subject, teachers are very opinionated about this, but it doesn't seem like summers off is very good for retaining information. Of course, I've said that before, and people have wanted to push me to the ground because of it. Summers off, I think, is kind of a societal norm, but seems like, I mean, I remember our summers off. It was, you go back, you forget everything that you learned.
Yep.
Yeah, you took like the first month just reteaching kind of like what you taught the previous year. It's interesting. So in North Carolina, I lived here for the past 4 years, and it wasn't like this where I lived in Maryland, was that so they have year-round school, but they're on different tracks. And the reason they do this isn't great. It's because there's a shortage of teachers. There's not enough teachers to teach all the kids. But basically, it's like a track system. So you go to school for a certain amount of time, and then you have like a week or 3 weeks off, and then they never actually have like a full summer off. It's more so I think the most amount of time that they're off is like a month, maybe a month and a half.
It's staggered.
It's just dispersed.
Yeah.
That's how they do. That's how they do it out here. That's another reason we're like, because I mean, growing up, my classroom sizes were like at least 40 people, 40 kids, and it's still like that. So,
Summers are good.
Yeah, and I'd also say, Erica, that's the reason why I kind of have to preface my, I am not, I don't know a whole lot about it, and I also know too that if part of the reason someone becomes a teacher is because of summers off, there's incentives for that or whatever, then, I haven't thought a whole lot about it, but that's just what I've heard.
I think I'm so sad.
James left us.
I'm sure he'll be back. So like, I don't know too much, but I know something. So like in Germany, the kindergarten is just about learning social emotional health. So I think like part of the problem is like when we talk about changing things, we have to keep in mind why things are the way they are and why there are issues in the first place. Like, why is there summer? I believe that the summer thing was literally just because back in the day, like, this is what I know, I could be wrong,
farmers,
but back in the day,
right?
Farmers, right? So it's like we based that system on something that actually made sense at the time, does not make any sense anymore. So, it's not like, okay, so we do away with summers, but we keep everything else the way it is. It's like, no, like,
right.
Like social emotional health, the fact that like I know that like in Japan, like kids like clean their classrooms, like these are just some examples of ways that our school is going to have to think outside the box. Our school system is going to have to start thinking outside the box. And as automation comes on and stuff like the way we connect with humanity, like the way our creativity, our imagination, these are skills. That's the thing that I try to talk about almost every time I get on a live stream is like, these are creativity is not just something you're born with. Like, it's a skill that you can develop. Some people have more creativity than others, of course, but no matter what, you are human. You can develop that by being creative, by practicing. Like, it's effort to be creative, to create something. Like, it's not easy, And so like, that's a skill that our school system right now doesn't teach. Teachers, like I know Erica, they find a way. Like, that's to me, like that was what made great teachers, some of my teachers, so great, because they found a way to either like tell a story when it came to history, or found a way to just be creative and make you see your world in a more creative way. And so I think it's just like the things that we value in our school system, like those just need to change. And then if those can change, then we can start making changes that make sense.
Yeah.
And that's why, like, I see in the comments, I'm a big advocate of like talking to the experts and the people. Thanks for coming back, James.
Sorry. We were talking about kids stuff, and I forgot I need to give them one of their workbooks. So
there you go.
Reminded me.
Okay, you're welcome.
Like I hear, parents and teachers commenting, I am not the person to ask about how to change schooling because I don't have a lot of experience except my own. I would say, though, that school is also a lot more than the curriculum. Learning how to talk and deal with adults that aren't your parents, and learning how to talk and deal with other kids that aren't your siblings was an important part. My dad was my soccer coach growing up, and around that interesting age of like 13, when the rebellious side comes out, it was not good for me to be playing soccer on my dad's team because I was very quick not to listen to him and to argue with him. Whereas I think I would have been a lot better playing under someone else. So school is a lot of different things, but whenever I talk to teachers or administrators, it's such a complicated situation. But I do know, I think a lot of changes can and need to be made.
Yeah. Kind of on my point, I'll just quickly quote the book. He talks about this thing called alt school. So he kind of gets in the building people chapter, he gets into some examples of new schools that are doing a good job and not just trying to take your money. And so he talks about some of these things that like could be taught, like grit, persistence, adaptability, financial literacy, interview skills, human relationships, conversation, communication, managing technology, navigating conflicts, preparing healthy food, physical fitness, resilience, self-regulation, time management, basic psychology and mental health practices, arts, and music. Those are all things we should be teaching, you know? How do you teach that? Well, you know, like the teachers will figure that out. They're really smart. Like they know, you know, they know how to figure those things out. And we already do have some things in place to teach those things. We just need to lean into it more and
And
value
can we
it.
please teach financial literacy? I mean, how to the benefits of compound interest and how to pay your taxes, and you know why saving for a rainy day is. You know, there was none of that. I went off to college and you know learned what late fees were, and I think I paid more in late fees in college than I did college tuition. I think we need, you know, a lot needs to be taught in that area.
The quote I just read was from page 229, by the way, someone asked.
Awesome. This has been like the fastest 2 hours. This was the April of 2 hours.
I know. I was like, wait a second. We're almost at 2 hours. I got to start packing the rest of my stuff up.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, I think that like that's a whole like specific dive into education. Like he also specifically dives into healthcare, and then he talks about the social currency system. And these are all things that, yeah, like I feel like it'd be kind of cool to host a specific meeting for all of the chapters in the third part, because the third part is where he says we're fucked, but we can unfuck ourselves if we do these things.
Yeah.
So maybe we'll consider that, guys. Let us know if that's something that you would like to see. We can bring on different people. We can obviously have Erica and Audrey on to talk about education.
Yeah, I think it'd be cool to have people like read sentences or paragraphs that struck them and what they think, and post videos like that or something. I don't know. We could think about it.
That could be a cool video idea. Everybody kind of like send it in and we could piece it together.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And by that, I mean Trevor could piece it together.
Yeah.
Good job, Trevor.
Yeah, I'll just quit my job and learn how to piece together videos, I guess.
Yeah. How about should we finish this by going around and talking about what UBI would mean to us, and what a world where, you know, automation, like what this kind of future world that we're seeing would kind of mean to us, and like what we would like to do, and what are our dreams and all that beautiful stuff.
I think that's a great idea.
Okay.
Not it.
Who would like to go first?
I'll go first, because I think for me, what UBI would, you know, allow me to do is, I mean, to be honest with you, my husband's about to become a doctor. The field that I'm going into, you know, public health, it's super relevant, but it's about to be even more relevant in light of current situations. You know, so I'm going into, and I wouldn't say extremely lucrative field, but I'm going into a field where I'll be making money. And, you know, my husband and I have talked about this a lot. UBI would help us help other people. And at the core of who I am, that's all I've ever wanted to do. You know, ever since I was a kid, you know, people would ask me, hey, what do you want to be when you grow up? I never had a solid answer. My answer was always just, I want to help people. I want to help people. I want to help people. And to me, the reason UBI is so appealing is because it would allow me to help other people. And I'm like almost tearing up, like thinking about it. I just, that's all I want to do, you know? And so that's what it means to me. You know, it would allow me to just really take whatever skills and time that I have and just do that, helping other people, you know? So that's what it means to me. I love you too, Audrey.
We all love you. Cool. Ellers or Trevor, do you want to add to that?
Sure. Yeah. So universal basic income for me, you know, financially, it wouldn't change my life a lot. My wife and I both work. We live in Seattle, and the economy here is fantastic. I've been very lucky in my career, and my wife is the best business person I've ever met. But what it would do, you know, my younger brother was homeless for better part of 2017. He deals with some mental illness, and it was not a good year for him. And he got $0 from the federal government. I mean, there's no one that qualifies more for help than my brother did. And he got nothing. And he lived in his car, and there was nothing we could do. We have a very strong support system with my family. But it would mean, you know, that he had a chance. He's doing great now. He's doing a lot better. He's on medication and doing fantastic. My mom's been very close to homelessness. She lives in Flint with her husband and my brother and her husband's brother. And universal basic income would mean that, you know, my mom's still working. She gets a little bit of Social Security, but a quick story, she qualified for Social Security early. She took it early, and she didn't get 2 months of it last year because she made too much money last year. And she made $19,000 last year, $19,000. So she could make a lot more money, but she chooses not to. Her employer would give her more money, but she chooses not to because she'll lose benefits if she makes more money. So universal basic income for me, besides it's the kind of society I want to live in. I want artists to be able to create art. I want caretakers and single parents and people that take care of their kids to have value. But it would mean peace of mind for my family. And it would mean that people that, because I think everyone deserves to have that floor. And it's just, it's getting harder and harder for me to not, when people don't think UBI is going to be helpful or why we shouldn't have you, it's getting harder and harder for me to even see how you can think that with the coronavirus, because it's happening all around us. So it'd be for my, you know, my family.
That's awesome. The reason I said not it at first is because I still don't know what I want to be when I grow up. Similar to Meghin, I mean, I've always wanted to help people. I've always wanted to do that. It's just there hasn't been a clear path. And UBI, I look at. I mean, when my wife and I first got married, after we got married, we both lost our jobs within like a couple months. So, and the social safety net is full of holes. So, without getting into details, like if there was UBI back then, like the situations would have been completely different. And I know there's millions and millions of people, especially right now, going through the same thing where it's, you know, if you don't know where you're going to eat, if you don't know where you're going to sleep, like things get very, very desperate very quickly. And so right now, I mean, I only want to like right now I want to get UBI passed. I want to get things done where it can actually legitimately help people as a whole system, because there's so many like running for office, like it shows you like even more of the systematic things that we need to change. And like that's what I want to do. Like once we get UBI passed, I'll figure out what I want to do past that. But right now, like that's all I want to do right now, just because I know how much of an impact it'll make. And again, if y'all haven't read this book, read it because it outlines a lot of the ways we can get there, and we just need to keep doing what we're doing. So again, thank you everybody like for participating in this. Thank you for having the Yang Gang Book Club to keep pushing it, because it's so urgent. And the issue is like most people don't know like that there's even a way to alleviate a lot of these issues, and we just need to get it out there.
I'd vote for you, James.
I love you too. I got a few votes. I got like 3,000, but yeah, wasn't enough.
I'd be 3,001 for sure.
Thank you. I appreciate it.
No, I really love that. I really love what you just said. I think that's awesome.
Yeah. I mean, for me, just to like, since I have to go after you, James, because I saw you do Paget Higgy's Livestream, and that's how I first like heard about you. And it was a surprise to me, and a little bit of a not good feeling surprise in a way, that I was like, oh yeah, people don't just do that. Like, people don't just run for Congress. Like, it was like an actual light bulb moment, and it didn't feel very good to realize it, but it was really cool to freaking see. You were the first person that I saw do that, and that I do not see politics in my future, but I know that what you did gave a lot of people that same light bulb moment.
Yeah.
And that's huge.
Yeah, and I mean that's one part. I appreciate that, and that's one reason like I even ran. It wasn't that like, hey, I have a good chance of winning, because it's I really didn't. It was just that if anyone's gonna figure out, like, just throw themselves out there and try to figure this out and go through all the button stuff, like, I'll do it just to figure it out. And hopefully, I think we've gotten a lot of candidates starting off on a better footing because of it. Like, even a lot of people that are running right now, like, I was talking to them in the very beginning just to how to get on the ballot. So we need more people running in office that, if you don't see yourself running for office, like, you should probably do it, because political offices are just full of very arrogant, very, people that are only care about themselves, power hungry. Exactly. That's what I'm saying. Yeah. And people don't want to run against that because it's not something that sounds very fun, but we need to get more people. Like, we need everything we've talked about today. We need to do. We also need to get more people in office and running for office, just to change the narrative and change everything from the inside out. So I appreciate that, Kateri, and we'll keep it going the right way. That's what I'm saying. Right now, it's we're making a huge impact. Like, believe it or not, we have a huge impact. So
yeah, you don't have to run for Congress either, but everyone can support people that do. And I've seen a lot more of that popping up. And I think, $5 donations, $10 retweets, for instance. I mean, just anything, you can do a lot to help. You don't have to run for Congress. Nothing scares me more than thinking about campaigning for something. But I can get behind people's message that I believe in, and try to be a megaphone for them, and try to shout their names and what they stand for.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. Yeah.
I'll let Kateri give her thoughts. I've been taking a lot of it.
Yeah, I feel like you should have gone last. Maybe I'll make this. I don't want to make this about me anyway. But maybe I'll just talk about with what I did with the book club and what I'm doing with Meghin with the book club. But for me, as someone who is more just artistically minded, like, literally my brain shuts off when I start thinking to do math, and it's gotten worse since I've been in school. So, what resonated with me about the book is when he said, the hard part is after we get UBI. And that's crazy to think about, I'm sure, even like for you, Ellers, like, for all of us, because it seems like such an uphill battle to get this thing passed. But I think he's right. And I think he's right in a way, because I even though I mentioned earlier, I get to do a lot of what I want to, stuff that is the dance related, performing arts related, writing and books related, and having started this book club now. But I'm not getting paid doing this. This is just a
passion project.
Passion project, yeah. Mm-hmm. But I really believe in it. I want to get to the point where, like, I am doing my own thing, and that is supporting me. And I would love the fact that, like, it's not actually just supporting me, because, like, I'm programmed to think of it that way. I should get to the point where it's like, oh no, I have my basic needs taken care of. This is the thing that I do to get ahead, and to give back to my community and all of that stuff. So I just kind of, for me, I have this mental health job, and that's the job I've had through school, and it's been about moving on from that. And when I kind of got to the point where I finally was able to go down to part-time with that job so that I can do more stuff that I believe in, that's when I had this feeling of like, oh, now, like, it's been such a struggle, that I'm like, oh, now the real work begins. Because it's like, now you're like creating your own thing. and doing it as like an artist, but also it's just very similar, I think, for people who are just trying to start a business. So yeah, so UBI for me is that, and so that's why I want to end it on a note about the book club, because I want this to be a space where, being that this is a very politically minded movement, we also have this corner where we're able to come in and talk with each other about that next step too now, and say, these are the things that we care about. These are the things that make us human. Policy, being a math movement, is so important. And I'm not trying to take away from that. I'm just trying to say, let's have these conversations too, because that, if we can prepare ourselves for that now, it'll only make us stronger. It'll only bring more people in. People who don't want to hear about politics, like my mom. I bring up politics and she just runs away from me. There's a lot of people like that in the world.
Yes.
And but she loves books. She's the one who gave me my love of books, and if I can repay it back to her, even if it takes years for her to get on board, that's what I'm going to do. So yeah, good freaking talk, guys. I love this.
Love it.
I don't know, how the hell are we at 2 hours 15 minutes? It went by.
Brian, will you bring roulette over here real quick?
We had this book.
Oh yeah, we
true.
need a free roulette, guys.
Roulette's been trying to
Trevor's
be on.
bringing
Mascot.
our mascot. She's our mascot.
Is it
Now,
a dog?
Keep in mind,
Oh my
okay,
God.
she hasn't had her hair did in a while, so she's looking a little Maddie right now.
No, she's precious. She's so cute.
I'm so dog. I grew up with like 5 dogs. I am so dog deprived. I don't have a dog.
Yeah, I grew up with big dogs like Dobermans, but she's 7 pounds and she's a good girl.
I'm gonna throw up some of the nice things.
She's a
Yeah,
big
let's do
Andrew
our
Yang
closing
fan
comments.
too.
I'm sure. Well, he retweeted you, so I'm sure he's a fan of Roulette.
Roulette was on his Twitter feed. That's right.
Roulette was on it. We need to get Kateri a doggo. I like this question. Sorry, I just threw someone off. Campaign, get Kateri a dog. Thank you.
Universal basic dogs.
Thank you,
I think,
Alyssa.
Yes.
needs to be-
Thank you.
Thank you.
Takesha.
Appreciate you.
Who else?
We love you.
We love you, Stephen Tran.
Universal basic puppers.
Mhm.
Love it.
Bringing people in, bringing in those dog lovers.
Yes.
Everyone can join
All
the
right.
Yang Gang.
Yes.
Love
All
it.
right, guys.
Okay. Yeah. So, well, we just gotta plug some things, I guess, right?
Yes.
Stay tuned
Housekeeping.
for housekeeping. Stay tuned for coming at you this month, because we're in May. Neurodiversity is this month.
Yes.
And also Asian American Pacific Islander. I forget the hashtag, but
Appreciation, yeah.
Heritage Month is this month. So neurodiversity is our theme that we picked in congruity with doing MADE, and then War on Normal People, something else relevant and special to Andrew Yang's message. And so we have some fun things planned, so stay tuned for that. And we do a mid-month hang, so we'll announce the mid-month hang in a couple. I mean, we'll announce it soon, but that'll happen in a couple weeks. And then after that, we will announce the meeting for that. But
Yes.
but I guess the important thing for that is there's no book this month.
No.
Okay.
No books.
So
No, so we're trying to be as inclusive as possible, right? And people were having a really hard time getting a hold of physical copies of books. And even things that are on the library apps are backed up because you still have to borrow the copies. So like audiobooks are out for like 6 months.
Oh my God.
Yes. So what we're trying to do is, yes, Audrey, we're trying to do articles. We're trying to get as many free resources as we possibly can that are downloadable. So if you guys know of any articles or even full books that are free, just let us know, DM us, tag us in a tweet. Just let us know, because we do want to make this as inclusive as possible.
Yeah. We'll still probably, if we can, we'll still maybe release some sort of book list or something, because we want to do book lists every month anyway. That's something we're working on. But yeah, the priority for this month is A, make it accessible for everyone in this current time, and B, it makes sense for this topic, because you don't want to just read one perspective or one focus with something like this. It's neurodiversity, so let's read a lot of different things that everyone can read. I think it makes a lot of sense. So
Yes.
looking forward to that.
Yes.
Cool.
Also, I do want to give the plug too. If you think you know somebody who maybe writes about this topic or something that would like to hop on a live stream with us, please let us know. Kateri and I are not neurodiversity experts, so
yeah, we need some help with this one.
Yes, we would love if you guys know of anybody who would like to hop on a live stream with us or contribute any content. Please let us know.
Yeah. I have my best friend is going to come on, and she is working on writing a book, but she's not own voices. So if we say own voices, that means that we are talking about people who are able to speak from their own perspective on a topic.
Yes.
And there's not some expert or, you know what I'm saying, someone speaking for a community. It's someone from within that community.
Yes.
So let us know.
Yes.
Cool.
I think that's
Thanks,
everything.
guys, so much for being on this very special stream. We will read this again. This is not the last time we read this book, of course. 2021. Get ready. And get ready for hopefully some more math discussion. Some more maybe
we'll
discussions.
Have another sticker. Hint, hint.
Ooh.
Hint, hint.
Stay tuned. Okay.
Stay tuned.
All
right.
Cool.
Love you guys.
Bye.
Gang book club out.
Gang out.